Blessings, beloved. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, with you guys today. I tried to do a live stream today, and unfortunately, I didn't have any luck. So I'm still working on that. So just bear with me. I'm really looking forward to doing some live stream uh, presentations, engagements, whatever you want to call them. So I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity to speak with you guys live and yeah, and just enable that journey to unfold as it does, and let's just see how that goes. But I am really looking forward to it. I just need to figure out how to get it happening. It's not as simple as just going onto my YouTube channel and just clicking live stream. There's a whole, for those of you that probably do know, probably know a lot more than me with regards to those technical computer components. Yeah, I have to download software, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, let's leave that alone for now. Just bear with me and I will get that up and running as soon as I possibly can. So today's brief introduction will be to Chiron in Aries. Today is the 26th of February, and the moon is in Sagittarius today, and it was forming a trine to Chiron earlier this morning, at least for those of us in Australia, or on, this time zone down here. And for those of you who are abroad, will be experiencing that tomorrow, I guess. So anyway, for me personally, today the energies have felt really quite raw, quite sensitive. There's been a lot really emerging within my own self, particularly today, and so I was trying to pinpoint and identify where a lot of this was coming from. And I think it's got something to do with Chiron in Aries. So I haven't got a chart example today, which I usually love to kind of bring into the presentations, because I know that it can be really, really powerful and useful to look at somebody's chart in relation to the topic at hand. But anyway, look, I might even do a second part to this video, because I'm literally just going to be more or less tuning into what's in my head already. I haven't really prepared for this video today, because I was essentially preparing just to do a live stream, and that was going to be quite a spontaneous chat as well. So as a result of that, I haven't really prepared much, but I do understand Chiron in Aries for a number of different reasons. Now, Chiron has only just recently gone into Aries, and I guess the other thing to remind ourselves of is, well, there's a few points. The first thing is Chiron entered Aries last year in April last year, and just hanged around there for a short time, and then went retrograde back into Pisces, and we've only had Chiron ingress back into Aries really just a few days ago. So this is going to obviously be a collective experience, and it will also be an individual experience. So let's break that up. The personal experience, first of all, will be those of you who are nearing, who are in late 40s and nearing 50 and so forth. In other words, those of you will be having a Chiron return, because you have Chiron in Aries in your natal birth chart. So you were born with Chiron in Aries. So those of you who are going into that are really going to be dealing with and experiencing Chiron in Aries in quite a different way to those that are going to be experiencing Chiron in Aries transiting in their chart. In other words, wherever Aries is in your birth chart, that's where Chiron will be showing up. Now, Chiron in Aries, spends around about 8 years. So we're talking about experiencing this wonderful energy of Chiron through the sign of Aries for the next 8 years. So it's quite a journey. It's quite a process. There will be a lot of different experiences for different people that will emerge, and we're certainly not going to be experience the intensity on a daily basis. That would just be too much. But whatever the case, because Chiron does move fairly slowly, he has a 49 to 51 year cycle, or 48 to 51 year cycle, depending on what sign Chiron is in for you as well natally, because Chiron moves faster in some signs and slower in some other signs. So Chiron spends a significant amount of time in Aries, which is really speaking to the world at large, really, in terms of every single person's core identity, primary identity, their primary sense of being, of who they are, of who you are. So let's just perhaps backtrack a little bit, because some of the things that I think are important to understand, and I did make a couple of notes here. So I did prepare a couple of things, but literally just a couple of lines. I think Chiron in Aries is I would consider it to be quite a challenging place to have Chiron, because we're really talking about the core essence of one's being, having an inherent sense of wounding. And now what I mean by that is this: Aries, or the first house, represents you emerging into the world, right? So from the moment of birth, coming into this body and taking on this body and expressing your being, your fundamental right to be, is Aries, period. So actually, I just want to also, I have done a couple of videos on the myth of Chiron, so I'll pop those links below in case you haven't seen them. They are worth watching, because I do go into quite a bit of depth and detail of Chiron's story. So for those of you who are not that familiar, it would be worth to watch those videos, and even for those of you that are, you might pick up on something that you don't already have in your knowledge or consciousness. But Chiron is such a complex archetype, because he represents the wounded healer, as we all know. So there's a lot of, when we're looking at Chiron through the lens of more of an optimistic perspective, we understand that Chiron was a natural healer. He was a medicine man. He was a shaman. He was an astrologer. He used divination skills. He was very well trained in a lot of different skills, even from the point of battle and defense. He was he taught archery, for instance. He was quite a skillful centaur. He was a very, very, there was many centaurs in that time, and he was a very different centaur to the rest of the centaurs around, who, from my understanding and reading the material that is around, the most of the other centaurs were considered to be of a lower manifestation in their consciousness, and therefore their behaviors. So Chiron stood out from all of them, all those other centaurs, because Chiron was a centaur. He was half horse, half man. But he had this incredible, he was born with these incredible gifts and talents, and most of which started to emerge and take form due to his own wounding. And he was wounded with a poison arrow, and there is some debate around that in terms of where the wound exactly was. But regardless of that, he was wounded with a poison arrow, and he had to come up with his own cure. But pre that, which is the more important component of this archetypal energy, which has got to do with the experience of rejection. So wherever Chiron is natally in your birth chart, there is some experience associated to that part of life that is that emerges right out from the experience of rejection and fear of being rejected. The reason that is because when Chiron was born, pretty much both of his parents rejected him. And he was then adopted and taken on by different gods or goddesses that pretty much helped him become who he was, which was this, he was renowned for healing, teaching, teaching on so many different streams. I touched on a few before. But his initial birth experience was one of not being accepted by his primary caregivers. And the reason for that was because of the fact that he was half horse, half man. So that initial experience of rejection lies at the core of the Chiron archetype that lives within all of us. And you could say that in a way, because we are all pretty much born with, well, not pretty much, we are all born with Chiron in our birth chart. So that to me then says that every single one of us experiences that sense of wounding right from birth. And another way of understanding that would be to say that the experience of birth into these physical bodies is quite a painful experience. And what I mean by that is that the soul component of who you are, which can never be destroyed, it can only be altered, transformed, transmuted, changed, but never destroyed. So the essence and the core of who you are, the soul energy of who you are, is eternal. But this physical form that we all take on in every single incarnation, which takes on the form of the ego, is fragile, vulnerable, and is wounded. And the initial encounter of that is simply the birthing experience. And I've said this in previous videos. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard of a baby being born and as soon as the baby comes out into this physical domain, to be laughing with joy, ecstatic, blissed out, because they're born into this reality, this physical domain, this physical body. The majority of babies come out screaming. You know, there's this experience of intense pain, in a way, you could say. Not from a physical perspective, but from a spiritual perspective. There's an awareness, even in that baby that is being born, that is that understands that, well, here I come, here I am. I have to now step into this physical body, and I have to step into this karma, this evolutionary path that I've chosen. And that's not an easy thing to do, but the soul is always the driving force. So we could say that the experience of birth is quite a painful experience to have, which is why babies come out crying. So it sort of begins from there, right? And then we're born, and then we're born on a particular day, time, location, and that sets up these planetary configurations that have tremendous potential on a number of different levels, because our soul is multidimensional, our charts are multidimensional, our experiences are multidimensional. But depending on who you are, where your soul is at in its evolutionary journey, depending on your consciousness, then we must add in the dimensions of the physicality in terms of the family we are born into, the culture we are born into, the religious components that we may be born into, the socio-economic structures we may be born into, are all going to really define, I guess you could say, how we are going to experience these cosmic energies we are born into. Because everybody has Uranus in their chart. Everybody has the Sun, Chiron, Moon, Venus, etc. So there is no one unique in that level. We all experience these cosmic forces, but how we emerge through them, what we manifest through them, how we evolve through them is very, very different for every single one of us. So Chiron in the birth chart really has a message of some inherent wounding that we are born into that can relate to past lives as well, and often it does. And if you're not open to past lives, that's fine. You can just explore, understand Chiron from this life. And for some people, Chiron might be quite obscure in terms of understanding his workings in your life and in your chart. And I think that's very much the case when Chiron is in the 12th house. It's very, very difficult to pinpoint and identify exactly what that Chiron means. Because the experience of Chiron in the 12th is so unconscious, and it's operating in these subtle vibrations and realms that are out of our consciousness. So to tap into that energy, we must access and enter the 12th house realm, which is it's the collective unconscious, and it's also our own components of unconscious experiences, or the unconscious component within us. So put Chiron into Aries. Aries lies, right next to Pisces, right? So Pisces is the completion, and Aries is always the beginning. So you could say that Chiron in Aries, a person who's born with Chiron in Aries, has some kind of experience very early on in life that marks some deep, very, very deep, because the wounding with Chiron in Aries lies very, very deep. It's not obvious. It's not easily accessible. Requires work to delve deep into oneself and find, which part of my being has experienced some kind of wound. Now, Chiron in Aries people can often be born into an environment or families or family circumstances that point to having experiences where whether they were overt or subtle experiences through family, family environment, parents. It could just be one parent, it could be both parents. And the parents are not necessarily acting in a malicious way or intentionally trying to create this experience for you, but just through the sheer fact of you have Chiron in Aries, so you need to experience what Chiron in Aries means. And unfortunately, it does start with some experiences that relate to as a little child feeling that you don't have the right to be. You don't have the right to be yourself. It could be certain types of things that were said to you or dictated to you that made you feel that expressing your individual little will as a little child, as a little person, expressing your initiative, which these are all Aries qualities and expressions, expressing your passions and desires, they've somehow been shut down. You've somehow received the message that you don't have the right to be that, to experience those things, to express those things. So these experiences create this internal sense of feeling deeply wounded when you go to just simply express yourself or exert your will or initiate your power. There's some fear around there that potentially holds you back. Now, as you've grown into, adulthood, you have possibly learnt ways of dealing with this, because the Chiron in Aries will bring up experiences for you through relationships, and particularly through relationships, because Chiron in Aries can often be that the Chiron in Aries person feels that because they can't express themselves and don't feel they have the right to initiate their being, initiate themselves into whatever it is. The opposite point to Aries is Libra, right? So it can sometimes be the case that the Chiron in Aries person, because they don't feel they have this right to their own being, they tend to project this energy into the Libran domain, so into relationships. So Chiron and Aries people can be wonderful healers, in other words, in helping other people, and particularly in one-on-one relationships. Or it can always be attracting, really wounded people into your life as well. And a lot of this has got to do with your own inner, very, very deep inner sense of wounding. You don't have the right to initiate and be, so you somehow internalize this and then project it onto the Libran polarity point, which is your experience of relationships. And that's one way you get to experience that Chiron in Aries energy, but it doesn't actually enable you or allow you to heal that deeper component within yourself. It's an attempt to protect oneself, because when you are born with Chiron in Aries and the inherent message is that you don't have the right to be, to exist, there can be, as a result of that, what lies dormant is this fear to showing up, to being who you are. So as a result of that, you hide components of yourself. And that hiding can also then lead to internal rage, very deep internal anger, particularly when you are confronted in situations where the opposition is really, putting that in your face, basically in some way, shape or form, communicating to you, or you interpreting what they're saying or how they are being towards you. They're not allowing you to be and to express yourself. Aries is simply that pure emergence of being. So if you feel that you can't be, you can't exist, then, you can imagine what that starts to set up on an internal, very deep internal level. So this all starts off, Chiron in Aries, it all starts off pretty much, from birth. So the other thing about Chiron in Aries, because the Aries archetype is such, it's described by the hero archetype, the warrior spirit, the warrior energy. I can do it myself. I can do this alone. I don't need anybody's help. That's Chiron in Aries. So Chiron in Aries, people often find it difficult to ask people for help. And sometimes, that may be the very thing they need to do, but typically they will not. They will sort of fight to the end on their own. And they will go through a lot of, sort of cyclic periods where there's this sense of a need to feel triumph, a need to feel empowered, a need to feel like you're fighting, for yourself, because Aries is the self. So all these wounded fragments, if you like, when Chiron is in Aries, are all mirroring, even through the Libra archetype, through the oppositional encounter that this energy comes up in a lot. It's all mirrored from our own sense of internal wounding of feeling that we don't have the right to exist. That's really Chiron Aries in a nutshell at a very deep core level. Just something I'd like to add to that as well. So Chiron in Aries can be that Aries is a very spontaneous energy, right? It's Aries is that energy that springs forth, just like the beautiful season of spring where things are born, right? And, things just come to life and they move forward in that birthing experience. And it's just totally new, right? It's birth itself. So Aries has that beautiful childlike innocence of expression to them. And it's a spontaneous urge to express and to be. There's no thought that goes into it. It's just simply being and expressing, which is why it's so childlike and so innocent, because Aries at the core level, when it's operating at that really beautiful level, it's innocence. It's just total innocence. So that spontaneous expression of passion and being, which is the Aries archetype, when that has been crushed in childhood because somebody has Chiron in Aries, this is what starts to set up all these things that I'm talking about with what the individual has to work through in their life. It's the warrior archetype, the warrior spirit needing to heal himself. But the most important thing is getting to that point where the Chiron in Aries can find that ability to accept themselves at the deepest, deepest level, to accept their existence and their beingness without anything else. Because that's what Aries is. Aries is existence. It's that beingness, that presence of birth just coming through. And there's nothing else attached to it because it's just simply that birthing experience. So for Chiron in Aries, it's very, very important to get to that very deep inner core primary sense of being, that core sense of identity of who one feels they are, and somehow find a way to heal that, which you've got to go through many, many layers till you get there. But if you're having a Chiron return, over the next 7 or 8 years, then this is what I suggest is going to present for you in terms of how do you work with this Chiron in Aries? What's it about? And that's just one level, which is a core and primary level, because we're talking about Chiron in Aries. The other level naturally is what house is Chiron in for you, because I'm very, very confident in saying this just through what I've seen over many, many years in people's birth charts. Chiron in house placement is just as important as Chiron in zodiacal placement. So you need to take all those points into account with Chiron in Aries, and understand all of that from Chiron's placement in your chart in terms of house location, because the house location is going to add another level of context into this story of Chiron in Aries for you. So it's interesting because if you had Chiron in the 7th house, then this healing of your core identity pre everything else, so going into the absolute essence, core beingness of your existence and healing that. If you had Chiron in the 7th house, you would still be doing that, but the world of relationships would be playing a very big part in that with you. So for example, it would be a case of maybe you are about to step into a relationship or are in a relationship currently, and this Chiron in Aries, which is your Chiron return, would now start triggering, these very deep wounds of your own existence in the actual partnership and relationship. So they would start mirroring through your partner, through the experience that you're having in the relationship. And that's not an easy process, by the way. So pay very close attention to Chiron's natal position. He's very powerful wherever he is. And naturally, wherever Chiron is, because at the moment, Chiron in Aries, as I said at the beginning, you may not be having a Chiron return because you're not in your 40s. So if you're much younger, or if you're older and you've already had your Chiron return, but you're simply experiencing Chiron in Aries in a particular part of your chart, Chiron via transit is, I must admit, can be really obscure to kind of pinpoint at times. It depends. It depends the house location. And the other important component to add into this is if Chiron's story in your birth chart speaks very loud. In other words, if Chiron is significantly placed, or Chiron's story just speaks so powerful in your heart, then I feel that the Chiron transits would speak to you a lot more as well. Because, look, there's a lot of people that will go through this transit of Chiron in Aries in, particular part of their chart, and it will appear that not much is going on, but that would be because this person's evolutionary path, the beliefs that they subscribe to, their level of consciousness and awareness, all those things are going to really impact, this Chiron experience. So, I mean, at a very basic sort of level, Chiron in Aries, for somebody who was born with Chiron in Aries, could have grown up in quite an aggressive environment, for instance, right? There could have been a lot of verbal aggression or even physical aggression, right? So, and I'm not making any judgments when I make these statements. I'm just simply identifying differences, okay, in certain streams that people are born into. So let's just use a lower vibrational example. If someone's born with Chiron in Aries, they grow up in a family that's dysfunctional. Most families are dysfunctional anyway, but let's just say a really dysfunctional family where there's a lot of verbal and physical aggression. Perhaps there's substance usage in the mix, which alters people's perceptions and so on and so forth. And so this kid grows up being abused, right? And then the family dynamics are so severe that, so dysfunctional, that the kid gets taken out of that home and then ends up being put into foster homes. And then through this experience of trauma and abuse, ends up not being able to recover from that, to heal through that. So what that Chiron in Aries person will do is the anger of Aries will come through instead. So they could end up being the aggressor. They could end up walking a life where they experience the world as a threat because their immediate environment was an actual threat. So you grow up in an environment where you are threatened and then you're thrown out there into the world. Well, what's your perspective of the world going to be? It's going to be that this world isn't safe. So if I'm not safe, I've got to protect myself. I've got to defend myself. I've got to fight for myself. I've got to fend for myself, all that stuff. So that can be an experience of the Chiron in Aries person who ends up spending their life just fighting the world, as it were, right? That's just one other example. So anyway, there's different ways this can manifest. Now, the Chiron in Aries from a higher vibrational level and a healing component in terms of accessing the healer, then it's about the individual. First of all, this is first and foremost, it's about healing the core self, healing your core identity. Because, the question then becomes, well, what is my identity? How do I identify myself in this world? Where does my identity come from? These are very important questions. And when you have Chiron in Aries, these very core questions must be explored. But just going back to the healing expression of this Chiron in Aries, then the healing is going to come from you and you alone. It is your own journey. As I know I said earlier that the Chiron in Aries can find it very difficult to ask for help. If that's operating on a positive level, then it doesn't really matter because First of all, I'm a firm believer that we are our own healer anyway. And anything we encounter, or any person we encounter, whether it's going for a healing session, an astrological reading, a tarot reading, a past life reading, whatever, anything, doesn't matter. Any of those experiences can be incredibly rich because, well, for many different reasons, but one reason can be that you are just very ready to be receptive to some very powerful information that somebody could give you. Or, you know, little light bulbs go off in your head when you hear somebody else's perspective on their understanding of you through whatever lens they are looking through. But even when you have those experiences, when you go back home and you sit with what's been offered to you, your life will not change unless you are prepared to take the appropriate action to step into whatever it is you need to step into to begin the integration process of the healing. So, you know, no one's got a magic wand. I'll use my little crystal as an example. It's a beautiful crystal. It's rose quartz and clear quartz. And it's very special. It had a ruby there, but she fell off. I've had this for about, at least 15 years. It's one of my favorites. But let's pretend this was a magic wand, which it's not. No one's got a magic wand, people. You know, beloveds, people, souls, whatever. It doesn't matter what I call you. No one has the magic wand. People want a magic wand to be healed and cured. That magic wand that you are looking for, and this is another primary message with Chiron in Aries, that magic wand is inside you. It's in here. It's in your heart. It's in your third eye. It's in all your chakras. I work with the 12 chakra system. So there's many centers above the crown chakra. You know, those chakras, which are very apt to bring in at this point of this discussion, because Chiron is about healing. And healing is an experience that can happen on multidimensional levels. You know, and I don't need to say them, but just to give an example, we can have emotional healing, physical healing, mental healing, spiritual healing, etheric healing, astral healing. We can heal our 12 chakra system by working on that on a daily basis, by, you know, practicing certain meditations that clear out those chakras, that enable us to feel more centered, more connected, to disengage from the external negativity and fear-based bullshit that gets thrown out frequently. So the point to this part of the video is that, and I work with this understanding in my counseling work and in my astrological work. My purpose for actually working with people on an astrological level and a therapeutic level is not to make myself feel powerful, that I'm the one helping you. I don't think like that, because I don't like to take people's power away. I like to step into a zone, into your zone, into another person's zone that a person allows me to, because, you know, I can't step into anybody's field without their permission. So my aim and purpose is to step into that zone with you, and, you know, maybe it may require a bit of tweaking or a bit of adjusting or a bit of adding a different perspective, or whatever the case may be. But it's all about each individual, first of all, being responsible for themselves and empowering themselves. No one's going to change your life but you. No one's going to heal your life but you. No one can heal your heart but you. No one can heal your wounds but you. everything that you encounter and experience can be a form of assistance, help, support, encouragement, inspiration, connection, etc. But you have to believe it within your own self. And this is what Chiron in Aries is about. It's about understanding that your core being can only be healed through you, through what you believe, through what you understand, through what you choose to heal yourself. And that's the beautiful high level of Aries, you could say, that has that enormous willpower. You know, Mars rules Aries, and Mars is a lower sort of or lesser expression of the planet Pluto. So Mars and Pluto are planets of the will. So is the sun, for that matter, and that's another reason why the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries. So Aries, by its very nature, has tremendous will, forces, and power to initiate, to take action, to engage that core warrior spirit. Because let's face it, this world is not, it's not just full of angels. There are many angels present. That this world is a world of duality. So we have both. We have the dark and the light. And if we want to take that a step further, that's really our own inner reflection anyway. It's our own inner anima and animus. It's our own inner dark and light, you know, shadow components, all of that. So anyway, Chiron in Aries is really about identifying that true warrior spirit within you that will choose to heal your core existence of who you are, and the fact that you have the right to be here, and that you are a sovereign being, a free being. Aries is about freedom. It's that, you know, that having that ability and freedom to express the right of who you are. The fact that you were born means that you have the right to be here. There is a purpose to your being and existence. So I feel that Aries in Chiron taps into all those issues or components of our experience and existence on the planet. So for those of you who don't have Chiron in Aries and therefore are experiencing Chiron in Aries transiting your chart, well, naturally it's going to bring up different things depending on what house it's in. But if you understand your basic astrology, which is the understanding of the zodiac and the houses, and of course the aspects and the planets, then that is enough of a foundation to start to connect dots and to start to get a sense of what this Chiron in Aries in any particular area of the chart would symbolize. Don't forget though, if Aries is, if Chiron's not a strong theme in your life, for some reason the Chiron energy, look, I don't know, because I haven't looked at every single person's chart. So I can't make assumptions. But from the work that I have done, I can say that I haven't yet come across an individual who doesn't identify with the Chiron archetype in their chart. Some more than others, but certainly still some kind of encounter or experience with that archetype. And, you know, if you have Chiron aspecting any of your inner planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, then, and particularly by conjunction, square, or opposition, those hard aspects to those personal planets, then Chiron is a big player in your chart. I have absolutely no doubt about that. Then Chiron might configure in other ways in your chart. He might be configuring in planetary aspect patterns. There's a few planetary aspect patterns that are incredibly powerful. Some are more subtle and obscure, and some are more transparent. So, you know, Chiron can be configuring in a multitude of ways in your chart. I'll leave it there for today. Let me just see, did I... Yes. Okay. I will leave it there for today, and perhaps I will do a follow-up part 2. If there's a calling for it, if people want more information, there may be some people watching who might find it difficult to understand transiting Chiron through the houses. Maybe that's something I can look at. Or maybe I will just do a part 2 anyway with a bit more info. I'll see how I go. But this presentation wasn't planned today, so I've really just gone very much with my own inner instincts on this, my own intuition. I'm an Aries, so I have very good instincts and very good intuition. And speaking about Aries is like speaking about myself, you know, because I am an Aries and I have Mercury in Aries as well. I have Pallas Athena in Aries, quite a strong little stellium of Aries there in my chart. So I resonate very strongly with this Chiron in Aries for a number of different reasons. And I have a very powerful example of Chiron in my own chart. And at this point in time, I don't really wish to disclose it. It's quite, well, it's personal. And yeah, I just don't, at this stage at least, I don't really feel like why am I saying this? I'm saying it because I would love to bring it forward as an example, because it's just so powerful, but I'm not ready to do that. Just like there's some other incredible things I can share with you guys with transiting Uranus, with transiting Pluto, with just some very personal experiences that have been happening in my life the last 2 years. And I'm still emotionally raw. And when I said that to somebody the other day, this person said, well, you know, aren't we always raw? And I guess we are to a degree, but I think when you've experienced something relating to what I've experienced, I know there's millions of people that have, yeah, it's just not, the timing's not right. I'm a big believer in timing. Timing is everything, absolutely everything, on every single level. So the timing's not now for that. But I have so much to share from my personal experiences that will be wonderful for you guys to learn certain things that are very powerful. Anyway, let's wrap it up. And what was I looking at with today's energies? Yeah, there's a lot of Pisces energy floating around. Chiron's literally just, you know, 0 Aries, so it's just the beginning. Mercury in Pisces, separating from a conjunction to Neptune in Pisces that we just had a couple of days ago. All planets are moving direct. Sun in Pisces, forming an applying conjunction to Neptune. Vesta's in Pisces. There's a lot of Pisces energy at the moment, so feeling very, very watery myself, very Pisces. I have Venus in Pisces, so, you know, when planets go into Pisces, my little Venus, she just lights up. And my Venus in Pisces, she's strong, but she's incredibly sensitive. and really, yeah, just picks up a lot from many different streams. Sending much love and blessings to all you guys. I hope you're all doing well, and I'll be back with a March update soon. Much love. Bye.